Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating about how our minds work. We're going to look at how we process our deepest, most difficult emotions, and, how we often get completely stuck trying to do it. We'll discover how a simple shift into metaphorical thinking can actually bypass our brain's most stubborn mental defenses and really allow genuine healing to happen.
Just listen to this instruction for a second. Imagine the events in your life are ingredients in a kitchen. Make a dish out of them. Don't judge or overthink. There is no good or bad. Work with what you have. Now, you might be thinking that's a prompt from a creative writing class, but it's not. This is an actual, highly unconventional prompt from a therapist to a client, and it completely sets the stage for the unique psychological journey we're unpacking today.
Which brings us to a really compelling puzzle. How do you treat deep trauma over a text app? With no physical room, no shared space, not even hearing a voice? Well, let's dive into this because the answer reveals something absolutely profound about how our nervous system actually metabolizes pain.
Section 1. Escaping the logical theater.
To understand why this digital approach works, we first have to understand the trap most of us fall into. Most of us default to self-examination. It's clinical, it's cold, we sit in this logical theater, which is essentially an intellectual playground where we just analyze our wounds. We throw around psychological jargon, we build these brilliant, complex narratives about our trauma, but we don't actually feel it. It acts as a super sophisticated defense mechanism. But on the flip side, we have creative exploration. This is warm, it's sensory, it's open. Instead of rigidly analyzing a feeling, you inhabit a symbol. Because think about it, when you try to analyze in the logical theater, your brain just throws up more analysis. But a symbol? You literally can't argue with a symbol. Section 2. The Digital Kitchen Invitation. So how do we actually get someone out of their head and into this warm sensory space, especially when they aren't even in the same physical room? Well, let's look at a real-world application. What we're exploring here is an incredibly rare peek behind the curtain, a real therapeutic encounter unfolding entirely through text messages on WeChat. The client is completely stuck. The traditional route of just talking directly about the pain is getting them nowhere. So the therapist completely shifts gears and drops that open invitation we saw earlier. Imagine the events in your life are ingredients in a kitchen.
Here's a quick roadmap for what we're about to see happen in real time. First, the invitation to the metaphor. Second, self-organization, where the client's mind spontaneously starts using the symbol. Third, depth, where painful experiences get safely named. And finally, integration, where a totally new way of holding that pain emerges. Let's see exactly how the client responds.
Section 3. Ingredients of the past. The absolute second the therapist offers this kitchen metaphor, the client's analytical ego, the part that usually blocks everything, just relaxes. It doesn't have a counter-argument to a kitchen. And so, simply by describing ingredients, the client starts organizing their traumatic past. They reply with this text. The first thing I'd find would be something sweet, honey maybe, or ripe fruit. That's the first 6 years when my grandfather was still alive. It was warm and golden. Notice the shift there? There's no clinical jargon, just warmth, honey, and a beautiful, sweet memory. The psyche is beginning to organize its timeline completely organically. But then the tone changes. The client continues, but then there's what came after. A lot of bitter herbs, a jar of salt with the lid broken off spilling everywhere, vinegar, things that sting when they touch an open wound. Think about how incredibly powerful this is. The raw, painful elements of the past, which we know involved severe threats and public shaming, are safely brought out into the open. The client isn't desperately defending against a psychiatric diagnosis. They're simply looking at spilled salt and vinegar on a counter. The metaphor holds the pain safely. And then, profound depth emerges. The client types, there's also something hollow, an ingredient that looks substantial but crumbles into powder when you touch it. That would be the neglect. This is a massive breakthrough happening right there on the screen. To describe emotional neglect as a powder that crumbles when you touch it, wow, that is a profound sensory reality. The client is finally making real contact with the feeling of the neglect, not just the intellectual concept of it. Section 4. Simmering and integration.
So, once all these heavy, bitter, and hollow ingredients are laid out on the digital counter, we hit a critical phase. These raw elements need to meet heat, and that's where genuine transformation begins. The client realizes you can't just erase the past. They type, I think for a long time I tried to throw all those ingredients away, but that's not how a kitchen works. So now, I'd make a very simple congee, something that takes a long time. And this brilliantly illustrates how the symbol does all the heavy lifting for us. The kitchen introduces time as an ally. The client realizes you can't rush raw ingredients. You can't just instant fix trauma. You have to integrate the bitterness into the dish slowly, with a lot of patience.
Then they add this absolutely beautiful sentence: "I don't think the dish is finished. It's still cooking." This right here is the essence of true psychological integration. There's no desperate urge to prematurely declare themselves cured. There's an acceptance that the process is ongoing. The pain is allowed to just simmer naturally, and that intense pressure to immediately fix everything, it just melts away.
Section 5, Observational Restructuring. But we have to remember, hitting this level of emotional depth over a text message is highly charged. The client is feeling a whole lot right now. And this brings us to the climax of the exchange, where the therapist steps back in to ensure the client isn't overwhelmed by their own breakthrough. The therapist sends this vital instruction: don't let your attention fuse with the emotions. Imagine a magnet and a nail. If you get too close, you are stuck. If you stay too far away, there is no connection. Find the right distance. Do you see what happened? The therapist deploys a brand new metaphor, the magnet and the nail, to perfectly regulate the client's psychological state. It's an incredibly precise way to help them witness their pain without being totally consumed by it.
So what's the clinical term for what just played out? It's called observational restructuring. In plain English, this means changing where you stand in relation to your own pain so you can witness it without being swallowed by it. The client isn't running from the pain anymore, but they aren't drowning in it either. They found that sweet spot, the perfect distance, completely guided by the simple imagery of a kitchen, a magnet, and a nail. All right, let's pull all of this together. What should we really take away from this explainer? First, remember that intellectualizing your problems is usually a trap. It acts as a defense mechanism that literally keeps you from feeling. Second, using metaphors and sensory symbols completely bypasses that analytical armor. Third, you absolutely cannot rush emotional healing. Raw ingredients require slow, patient heat. And finally, genuine healing isn't about destroying your pain. It's about finding the exact right observational distance from it. Which brings us right back to you. We've seen just how powerful this framework can be for someone else, but I want to leave you with a thought to carry into your own day. If your mind is a kitchen running right now, what ingredients are simmering on your stove? And are you standing at the right distance? Take a moment today to step out of your logical theater and just take a look at your counter. You might be really surprised by what's waiting for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.